my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Darian, aka LOL Not Darian, on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Comment down below how you felt about this episode, because we are getting into the season finale of Only Murders in the Building. First initial raw dog thoughts. I watched it 2 days ago now. Yeah, it's Thursday. I watched it Tuesday morning. I'm pissed the fuck off. I'm not even gonna hide it, you guys. I'm not very happy with the season finale of season 4. And it's not that I'm pissed off, it was so lackluster. And I saw on Reddit somebody said that it felt like a filler, and that's exactly what it was. Sorry, I need to fix my posture. Number one, and I predicted this in my last video, they left the plot holes open, and I'm not happy about that, because what was the point of bringing it up if it really did not make any sense to bring up those plot holes if they weren't going to do anything with it. The plot holes are still there. They weren't on my mind until the writers brought it up, just to not solve it. Like, I'm so disappointed in them. And here's the thing, I saw somebody, I'm not one of those people that do the whole thing of like zooming in on people's lips and like being like, oh, this lip shape or like this lip size is da-da-da, so it has to be blah, blah, blah. I've never done that. I had no clue that people were taking the show that seriously, like to that degree. So I get it when people are like, it was never meant to be taken that seriously, however, I'm not gonna give them that easy cop out of, oh, it's just a comedy show to show off Steve and Martin's comedy duo, but it just has like a mystery element to it, but the mystery isn't meant to be taken that seriously. No, I'm not giving them that cop out. The entire premise of the show is that they're supposed to be a murder mystery comedy. Murder mystery comedy. You don't get that easy write-off from me of, oh, yeah, it wasn't like the best, but it's not supposed to be about the mystery element. It's supposed to be about comedy. No, it's supposed to be about both. It's supposed to be about the mystery and the comedy. So if you have a weak mystery, or if you have a weak reveal, because it's not even about the big twist of it all. It's about the fact that, number one, they sped the fuck through it. Okay, I think the reveal was like 5 minutes long. And then number two, we still have so many things on the board that are open. If you have a weak mystery or a weak reveal, that's half of the show. The show is a mysterious comedy, right? Right. And so I'm not going to excuse the lazy writing because it's just the show isn't meant for that. No, it is meant for that. It was marketed as that, and so it's meant for that, and I'm going to call them on their bullshit. It was lazy writing, it was weak writing, and they could have done better. I'm gonna just put it out there. They could have done better. I feel like the story got away from them a little bit. Whatever was going on with the Westies and their storyline was the main storyline, and it kind of quickly turned into Saz and her storyline being the secondary one. They spent so much time on the Westies. The mystery of what was going on with them, why they were acting weird, who Dudenoff was, things like that. They spent so much time on that, and that became the forefront. That became the primary storyline. And that's fine with me. That's okay. However, if that was going to be the primary plot, I would have preferred that. This is how I'm trying to say it. I'm okay with them giving us irrelevant things and dead ends. I am absolutely okay with that, and I'm okay with them giving us information and insight on the victim and things like they always do. However, I am not okay with them giving us that and giving us secondary plot lines if the primary plot line has to fall to the wayside because they're too focused on giving us all these other details. to the point that the primary plot line only gets 5 minutes of a reveal. Whereas the secondary plot line with the Westies, we got an entire episode. What happened with Dudenoff from top to fucking bottom. We got more time and more information and more storytelling and more of a reveal when it came to Dudenoff and what happened with him than we did when it came to Saz and what happened with her. And she was supposed to be the main focus of this season. And this isn't to say that it was like a horrible episode. I don't think it was a horrible episode by any means. I think it was an okay episode. I saw somebody say that I cuss too much, and I just want to say, mind your goddamn fucking business, bitch. If I want to cuss on my channel, I'm gonna cuss on my channel. The first scene, we have Saz narrating, and we open up to Charles doing a scene and him and Saz doing their tap in so that Saz can do a stunt for him in Brazos where she jumps off the edge of a building. You can tell she's in pain, she's icing her neck and everything, and she's basically talking about how sometimes she thinks that she would like to be on the other end of, you know, filming a movie where she is the writer slash director instead of the stuntman. She goes and sits down, she's still icing herself. Charles goes to say something to her. She hurries up and removes the ice pack because she doesn't want him to worry about her. And while he's trying to have a conversation with her, you know, all of like the makeup people and hair people and like his assistant and everything swarm him, and Saz is just like, you know, don't worry about it, like it's okay, we can talk later. Saz starts talking about how she found a hero to write her story about, and her hero of course was Charles. So that's when she actually starts writing the Only Murders plot. After we see like in the montage she finishes writing her movie, we jump straight to the next scene, and as Charles and Oliver come into Charles's apartment, and they have made the realization that Marshall is the one who killed Saz. He says that he hasn't heard anything back from Mabel, and he's kind of worried about her. And I also predicted this, which was there was going to be an attempt on Mabel's life either in the 9th episode or the 10th episode when the killer was revealed. Like in the next episode, there's going to be an attempt on Mabel's life, or one of the next coming episodes, there's going to be an attempt on Mabel's life, and that's going to be the one kicks off the series of events that helps them figure out who actually is behind these attempted and successful murders. That's when Charles says, you know, every single time we reveal the murderer, that's when the next body drops. I wonder who it's going to be. Oliver says, don't wish that on my wife. Charles is like, I'm not wishing that on anybody. So that's when they're figuring out who might be the next body, that's when Charles gets a text message from Mabel's phone that says, call the police or come anywhere near her door and I will kill you. They go over to the window, look into her apartment through Charles's window, and they see Mabel and Marshall in her apartment looking through the window. I'm sorry. When Mabel was like, I'm gonna go get a water, and she starts like walking towards her kitchen, and Marshall runs and jumps on the wall and then jumps in front of her. So OD. So OD. Parkour, head ass. Like, come on now. But anyways, so she says, you're pretty fit for a writer, and that's when she makes the connection, like, you're Saz's protege. So Mabel makes the connection that he is Saz's protege, and she realizes that he stole her script and killed her. That's when Marshall tells Mabel that he is going to have to kill her too, and she basically buys herself time and says, you know, okay, you can kill me, but I won't be able to help you rewrite the script. And she starts pointing out obvious issues within his script. And he says, okay, we'll rewrite the script and then I will kill you. This episode is so ridiculous. I mean, I know it's like meant to be ridiculous, like that's the whole point of the show, but like this episode I feel like was over the top. We go back to Oliver and Charles in Charles' apartment, and Charles realizes that there were not two killers. It was Marshall using the ledge of the apartment to get to Saz. So he keeps saying, like, you know, we are going to have to walk on the ledge from my apartment to that apartment and get Mabel out. He said, don't come to the door. so we can just go to her window and get her. Oliver is like,
I hear you talking about we a lot. Oh, you speak French now.
what are you talking about? We, us. My old ass is not getting on no motherfucking ledge. I know that. If I don't know not a goddamn thing else, I know one thing's for damn sure. I'm not getting on that motherfucking ledge, bitch. You got me fucked up. So, and so Charles was like, you know, okay, like you don't have to, but I let Saz die. I'm not gonna let Mabel die too. So that's when Oliver tells him, like, you know, well, you don't have to do it from here to there. Why don't we go to Vince's apartment? And you walk from Vince's apartment, which is right next door, to Mabel's window. And we just sneak her back out through Vince's apartment. They say, okay. Charles says, okay. They leave his apartment. They run into Lester. Lester is trying to, like, have a conversation with them. Charles is basically like, you know, I'm not good with anecdotals, Lester. And we also really don't have the fucking time. And Oliver puts him in charge of something with his wedding, and they skedaddle. On the way to the west side of the Arconia, Oliver and Charles run into Loretta, who just made it to the Arconia. She tells Oliver that she's not sure if she can marry him now because she is getting relocated to New Zealand literally the day after tomorrow or whatever, because the show is being relocated to New Zealand. Apparently New Zealand is like up and coming, it's like trending or whatever on social media, so they want to move the show to New Zealand to try and get better ratings. That's when Oliver tells her, you know, right now I don't have time, but like, you know, I'll just move with you. Like, married people move for each other, they do it for each other all the time. I'll just move, but right now I really have to go. So he skedaddles, and we go to the next scene. The next scene we see Vince and Rudy. We see Rudy and Vince. They are in Vince's apartment and they're working out. While Rudy and Vince are working out, or really Vince, apparently Vince had hired Rudy to be his like personal trainer or whatever. They get a knock at the door. Obviously, it's Oliver and Charles. They come in and they tell Vince and Rudy about what's going on at Mabel's apartment and how they need to get over to Mabel's apartment through the window, and that there's going to be a distraction of some kind needed at Mabel's door, like a knock or a ding dong. That's when Charles goes to the window. He steps out on the ledge, and Oliver tells him, if you fall, try to angle your body so that you don't fall on the wedding because everything is a rental. Hilarious. Charles starts shimmying or whatever, trying to get to Mabel's apartment. He is very terrified. He's actually super scared of heights. He revealed that earlier in the episode whenever Saz did the stunt for him. And that's when Oliver decides to come and join him on the ledge and help him get to Mabel's apartment. They decide to turn around, which I think is so terrifying. So terrifying. Oh my god, I can't even like fucking imagine, but they do it. They turn around on the ledge and they start shimmying over to Mabel's apartment. As soon as they get to the window, they hear knocking, and that's when Charles is like, okay, well, Oliver, if you're here, who the fuck is knocking at the door? Of course, it's Rudy and Vince. They're knocking on Mabel's door, asking to borrow some sugar. They're making sugar chicken, and they never made it before, and so they are just trying to see whatever they could put in there. So they just start requesting a bunch of shit while Marshall is at the door telling them, like, we can't talk right now, in a fucking southern accent for some reason. We can't talk right now, you know, sorry, can't help you, blah, blah, blah. When they get to the window, they knock on the window. Charles and Oliver knock on the window and they tell Mabel, like, you know, to come over. So she gets there, she gets over to them, opens the window, and Charles decides to step in instead of pulling Mabel out. Oliver is like, you know, what the fuck are you doing? And Charles is like, that's who killed Saz. Like, I need answers. So he goes, grabs Eva Longoria's 19-in-1 multi-tool that acts as a nail gun, and he shoots Marshall, or he shoots at Marshall. Obviously the nails hit the door instead of Marshall, and that's when Oliver, or I think Charles, he kicks the gun out of Marshall's hand. Oliver picks it up, points the gun at him, and he tells him, sit down. you fake bearded bastard. So that's when Marshall has a seat and they decide to basically go over the entire thing as to how and why Saz was murdered. Mabel tells Charles that Saz actually wrote the Only Murders movie and that Marshall stole it from her. Marshall starts telling them about how he wanted to be a writer and how he tried to do what all writers do, which is turn their trauma into a script. And he said basically that his dad was a hunter and wanted his son to be a hunter too, and that he was actually really good at it. Marshall was a really good hunter, but he told his dad that he wanted to be a writer. His dad told him, I give it 6 months and then you're going to be back home. He asked them if they would watch the movie, and they were like, it depends on who's in there. Like, would I have to go to the theater to watch it? I still ain't seen The Wire. Fun fact, I also have not seen The Wire. I'm not a big fan of shows with drugs in it. And I'm pretty sure that's what The Wire is about. That's why I haven't even watched like Breaking Bad or like Power and things like that. So he said that he was about to give up on writing. Marshall says that he was about to give up on writing until he ran into Saz. Saz got him on that Ron Howard set. He fucked it up, got blackballed, and so he said that Saz actually didn't cut him off after that, and she was still supporting him, still supporting his dreams and everything, and that's when he asked her to read his script. When he asked her to read his script, she said, okay, yeah, I've actually been writing a script of my own, and asked him to read hers. So they're both reading each other's scripts. Marshall is like, it probably won't be all that good, but then he reads it and he realizes that it is fantastic. However, he tells Saz that it was not really that good. He tells her that he can give her some pointers and help her with some fixes if he's able to make a copy, because that was her only copy. And so she says, okay, sure. And he gets a copy and he actually starts shopping around with the copy of the Only Murders movie. He was not expecting it to get picked up until it was actually picked up by Paramount. Basically, Saz finds out about the script being bought because obviously they're shopping around for stunt people. She's a shoo-in because they need somebody who will play a stunt person for Charles' character. And she always plays a stunt double for Charles, so it made sense. And that's when she finds out about it. She calls Marshall over to her apartment or to her house, and she cusses him the fuck out, as she should. And she reveals that she actually wanted to ask Charles for his permission before she decided to start selling it, because she didn't want to do that behind his back. Obviously, it's about his life and his relationship and everything else. So it just made sense for her to ask him first. Marshall tells her that he wasn't intending to sell it. He was just trying to see how well it would do with people, but then Bev Mellon bought it. She tells him, you're making up fucking names now, and he's like, no, that's the actual name, like you can Google her, blah blah blah. Basically, Saz tells him that she's going to go see Charles on his Broadway debut the next day, which was for Death Rattle, I think that's what it was called in the last season. And after his Broadway show, she was going to tell him about the movie. Marshall tells him no, that his dad is going to be so disappointed if he finds out that he was selling a script that wasn't his. And she tells him, I don't care, get the fuck out of my house. This was like just so rushed, this whole part. Like that was like the worst part that I hated about this episode, was that it felt so rushed. So incredibly rushed. So Marshall says that he remembered the Dudenoff apartment. Apparently Saz had made an entire like subplot at the beginning of the show, or at the beginning of the movie. It was the first thing he cut, but he remembered the apartment. It was empty and he remembered the code, which also begs the question, how did Saz know that there was an empty apartment on the west side of the Arconia, and how did she figure out the passcode? Nobody would have given it to her. Did she know Dudenoff? Like, that still doesn't answer any questions about like how he got in, because then it's just, well, how did she get in? Or did she ask like the people over there like what the code was? I don't know. He goes to that apartment and he's about to shoot Saz. He decides not to, but then he keeps telling himself that he's not a killer, that he's a writer. But then he has an epiphany that tells him maybe in order for you to become a writer, you have to be a killer. So he ends up shooting Saz when Saz is in Charles' apartment alone. When he shot Saz, he saw that she was still alive, or like when he got over there, he saw that she was still alive. And so he goes over there to dispose of her body, and he sees her writing her note on the floor, tap in. Charles tries to shoot him again, tries to shoot Marshall again after realizing, so basically Charles says, then you watched her die and then you threw her down the garbage chute like she was trash. Marshall says you can think of it as her final stunt. Charles gets angry, he tries to shoot Marshall again. It doesn't, it's on the vibrator setting, and so he tries to throw the corkscrew at Marshall. Marshall dodges it. He goes and kicks the gun out of Oliver's hand, grabs the gun, and when he's about to shoot the three of them, he gets shot. And who do we see that shot him from Charles' apartment? None other than who? Fucking Jan. Oh my god. Here's Jan again. So yeah, Jan was there. They hurry up, run over to Charles' apartment. Police are already there. That is when they start asking Jan about like where she was this whole time, and Jan reveals that she had been living in his closet and the passageways the entire time, just waiting for them to find who the killer was so that she could kill him. The next scene, we see the crew watching the filming of the Only Murders movie. They actually switched out the script for Saz's script. That's when Mabel tells Bev Mellon that she doesn't think she belongs in the industry, because Bev Mellon is asking her like, oh, when are you gonna like, do this whole thing about buttons? Mabel's like, I would actually like to write, basically she would like to write about Saz, do a podcast about Saz. And that's when Bev Mellon tells her like, well, buttons are like really trending right now. And Mabel's like, yeah, this isn't cut out. I'm not cut out for this. This industry is not for me. Bev Mellon, always busy. She runs off because she gets a call or whatever. That's when Mabel, Charles, and Oliver huddle back together again, and the actors start filming the scene again. So that's when we see Charles, and he's basically having one last goodbye to Saz. He tells her, I believe this is your chair. He sees her sitting on the block or whatever. He tells her, I believe this is your chair, it's the writer's chair. And obviously he's talking to himself, but it's really sweet to see that closure. Next scene, we have Charles and Mabel walking Oliver down the aisle for his wedding, and then Loretta's being walked down the aisle by her son. Yes, her son and Oliver's son. They have their wedding. It's so cute. They get married. During their dance, during the reception, Loretta says that they have never been a conventional couple, so why would they start now, and that it doesn't make sense for Oliver to uproot his entire life to move to New Zealand with Loretta. He agrees. We go to the next scene. We see Mabel and Charles in the apartment building. Sorry, my throat. They're talking. The elevator doors open and we see this woman come out, and this is another part where I was right, because I was talking about the news. And did y'all notice that they showed that news article? It had nothing to do with what's going on, so I wonder what that's supposed to be foreshadowing. I wonder if that's supposed to be like the foreshadowing of the next season, where they were talking about the dry cleaning in the Camuto family, and there was like, I think, a murder or something that happened in relation to that. I wonder if that's supposed to be like something to set up the next season. Tied to this woman that just came out of the elevator. She is Italian. The woman said that she was downstairs looking for Charles and Mabel, and she said that there was no doorman on duty, so she decided to just go on up. She said her husband is Nicky Cachemilio, and she's trying to find him. She wants to hire the crew to find him. They say that they only do mysteries that are within the building, and she said that he has business that is very intertwined with the building. They kind of just brush her off, and they go back downstairs to get back to the wedding. After that, we see Oliver say goodbye to Loretta. Loretta gets in her SUV, and we see the crew all meet back up, the three of them. They're walking, they're basically talking about how they don't know what they're going to do next. There's no, like, you know, bodies that have dropped. They're waiting for a body to drop. And while they are in the middle of talking and filming the last bit of the podcast to close everything out, that is when I noticed, and the viewers, if you guys paid attention, there was red water coming out of the fountain. I'm like, okay, maybe it's just for the wedding. But I was like, no. And that is when we see Lester dead in the fountain. And that is the end of the episode. Like I said, a weak episode, weak reveal, weak mystery, weak plot line, or weak plot point. It was weak all around. It felt like a filler of an episode, which is bad because it's a finale, you know. It should never feel like that. I enjoyed it well enough, but there are definitely episodes. I feel like the first episode and the last episode of a season are the episodes that you should enjoy the most. I would give this season a solid 3 out of 5 stars. That is going to be my rating for this season. I feel like they kind of dropped the ball a bit when they got too carried away with the Westies and figuring out what was going on with them. If they wanted to get as carried away with that story as they did, then they should have made that the primary plot. There are still some things that need to be answered. They had so many, they took so much onto their plate during this season that they just kept leaving open and leaving open and leaving open for a huge season finale. But because they forgot that they only are allotted like 45 minutes or whatever for an episode, they didn't realize that they wouldn't have enough time to close all of those plot lines. We got to the last episode and there was so much that still needed to be closed up that it just, everything felt so rushed, because not only did they have to close all of those storylines that they had opened up, but they also had to open up new storylines to set up the next season. And it wasn't enough time to do everything that they had set themselves up to do. And that's why it felt so rushed and so like last minute and so half-assed. They didn't have enough time. They just simply did not have enough time, and they ended up having too much dip on their chip, and it absolutely showed. Those are my thoughts for the season finale of season 4 of Only Murders in the Building. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of my Japan vlogs. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.